Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening. Welcome to our Tuesday, March 12, 2019 Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Thanks for being here, those of you who are here in person, those of us joining online. Clerk, let's go ahead and get started and read the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmembers Sale.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Staley. Here. Brecky. Erickson. Here. Kiley.
Here.
Neitzer.
Here.
Selberg.
Here. All right, we're honored to have Senior Pastor Randall Gehring here tonight from Our Savior's Lutheran Church, and he's going to lead us in the invocation before our meeting. So if you would please rise for that and stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance immediately following.
It's that time of year again, March Madness, when sports enthusiasts feast on a veritable buffet of end-of-season tournament action. We in this community are not unfamiliar with this annual ritual. The Summit League champions are in fact being crowned today in our great city, amidst cheering crowds and adoring fans. For a church guy like me, who also happens to be an avid sports enthusiast, March Madness always coincides with Lent, a span of 40 days prior to the great celebration of Easter, in which each believer is invited to return to God with earnest devotion and renewed commitment. It's a season when the words of the prophet remind us, for yet another time, of what God desires most for this world, that we would loose the bonds of injustice, free the oppressed, share bread with the hungry, shelter the homeless. The prophet knows we need reminding, for these are priorities we so easily lose track of, or grow tired of, or simply ignore. But I wonder, since we clearly have it in us to bring an astounding level of commitment and enthusiasm to those things we care deeply about, like supporting our favorite team during March Madness, could we not also bring that same level of commitment and enthusiasm to those things God cares most about, like caring for our neighbor and creating a society that works for everyone? Let's pray. God, we praise you for all that exhilarates and brings joy to our lives. Stir the hearts of these civic leaders whom you have called into service in our community, that they may serve you and the people of this city with every ounce of their being, with every gift you have given them. Give them passion for this vocation, compassion for all whom they serve, and a will to work together for the common good. Guide the work of this body and bless each of these, your servants, tonight and always. We pray this, trusting in your goodness and grace. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good to see you.
All right, we'll move on to item 4, approval of the consent agenda. Are there any changes or motions to make on that?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion to approve by Erickson, seconded by Sale. Any discussion, council? Okay, a vote on that, please.
Councilmember Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
All right, that is passed 7-0. We'll move on to approval of our regular agenda and look for a motion on that.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Kylie?
Okay, move to approve by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion, council? All right, I'd ask for a vote on that, please.
Councilmember Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley. Yes. Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes. All right, next up is public input for tonight's meeting. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person, and in total lasts no more than 30 minutes. During this portion of the meeting, persons may not address items appearing on the regular agenda. For those items after general public input, the time is limited to 3 minutes unless the item is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. At this time, I'd like to invite members of the public forward for public input. And clerk, please note our time right now is 7:06. Good evening.
Good evening, Scott Harris from Sioux Falls. Now that our former chief of the fire department has been convicted and sentenced to his crime, which is a felony, I think it's time the city really seriously looks into finding a way to pay him his vested pension and cutting him off the rolls altogether. No health benefits, and no money from taxpayers contributing to his pension. The reason I say this is, number one, as a taxpayer, it's frustrating. Number two, I've talked to several city employees who are completely angry and upset that someone who convicted of a felony of this order and admitted guilt would be getting taxpayer pension money. Now, like I said, he vested money. He deserves to have that money, and I think the city should pay him that money. But anything else that's contributed from the taxpayers, I don't believe he deserves. I don't care if he didn't go to jail. He was convicted of a felony. He admitted to guilt. And we shouldn't be, as taxpayers, giving pensions to felons. It's disgusting. And I can tell you a lot of city employees are very angry about it. And earlier I heard you guys talk about the crime rates. I don't have a lot of time to get all into that. But I've been saying for years, if we change the TIF program to start cleaning up these core neighborhoods, the crime would go down. It's the broken window syndrome, people. You clean up these neighborhoods, the drug houses go away, people take pride in their neighborhoods. This is how we need to spend our money. Instead of giving $1 million TIFs to condos and $1 million TIFs to apartment buildings that are above market rate rents, we need to be giving this money to cleaning up these core neighborhoods. And then we save ourselves money in public service for our police department, because then they're not as busy chasing down these people. It's like whack-a-mole. That's what we do. That's what we're playing, whack-a-mole, really, basically. We choose not to clean up these neighborhoods. We choose not to spend the money to clean up these neighborhoods. We give this money away to wealthy developers who don't need it. And then we spend more as taxpayers trying to fight the crimes in these neighborhoods because we're not cleaning them up. It makes no fiscal sense whatsoever. It's time we have a strategic plan, and we need to start working on it today on how we're going to clean up our core neighborhoods. Clean them up from top to bottom. That means the streets, that means the infrastructures, that means the houses, that means the people that live in them, that means the drug dealers, that means everything. The businesses, everything, top to bottom. Otherwise, we're just going to keep playing whack-a-mole.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? Good evening.
Hi, Stephen Ciano. I'm very disturbed about the response to my presentation last week. I thought that I was clear about certain things, and I was grossly misrepresented when I reviewed the so-called minutes or summary of my presentation online. The public has a right to know. The public is being systematically denied the right to know what is going on. This pattern is becoming more and more clear through many of our testimonies before this body. And you all must do something about it. It is your responsibility to the best of your ability. I was talking, for instance, last week about the the city attorneys and the Falls Community Health not doing their part for me, the people, and others, evidently. I am disabled. And all it said was something about, as I recall, it said, oh, well, I talked about the VA. Well, mostly what I talked, and then I talked about the city attorneys. Well, hey, I was complaining about maltreatment, misconduct, crimes, for which you all could be held accountable if you have the ability to do something about it and don't. Now, also last week, I was unable, because of my situation, my condition, I had to leave to get the last bus back to my apartment. Otherwise, I'd have been stranded. Before some came late in the session, Pat Starr presented his position, and I appreciate Greg Neitzert's response to it. He made a good point, which I was considering myself. Good for him. That doesn't mean that this should be over. I think it should be presented again for a public vote, and people should be held to a higher standard. You people, you have a higher responsibility to we the people, to the public, and I, as a disabled veteran, should get more respect and perhaps more time than 3 minutes. And limiting it to 3 minutes, by the way, just like limiting the vote to 50%, is an attack on the public. And it's directly in opposition to your stated contractual responsibilities. Now, I expect you're going to be cutting me off in 12 seconds because, you know, even though I can go through all the presenters last time and their key points were consistently, systematically
Thanks, Stephen.
denied, refused, ignored, misrepresented.
Thank you, Stephen. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I want to address the gentleman behind me, but I don't want to be disrespectful and look backwards, so I just wanted to let it be known on record that I plan on giving you my business card. If you ever feel stranded, I will give you a ride home, Steve. Mr. Mayor and City Council, my heart is pounding out of my chest because I just came by a dilapidated neighborhood that I just took a bunch of pictures, and lo and behold, I met the man who owns it. And I have to share with everybody that it's at 1100, and anyone that knows me knows my favorite number is 11. And inside, and not inside, but on the outside of the building, which I don't know which is inside, it says, "We create dreams." And then it says, "Start, stop." And then it has a whole bunch of people looking like they're running after their dream. And this is kind of by Get and Go, where I got gas. And I just wanted to let you know, Teresa, that I did meet the owner, and it's like kind of where this Max liquor store is that's been closed for a long time, right off of by where the hospital is, and areas that we talked about last week as far as the 4 homes or so. I drove over there when I went to OI today, and I just want to say that I believe that that was a good decision on behalf of our city and development. I've been in real estate development brokerage for almost 20 years, and I just want everybody to know that I'm absolutely excited about what's going to go on in our neighborhoods, and I just want it on record that I'm excited about our core neighborhoods, and I just want you to know, Mr. Mayor, I think you're doing a wonderful, awesome job. And if you look up the word awesome, it goes on forever, and Erica knows that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, City Council.
Can you just quick state your name? I missed it on the front for the record.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Cher Rosa de Choron.
All right, thanks, Cher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Anyone else this evening? All right, clerk, next.
Someone.
Come forward, ma'am.
My name is Chelsea Johnson. I just wanted to address the, I live here in Sioux Falls, and I live adjacent next to the parking lot that's proposed by Terry Redlin and the street of Highland. And I just wanted to say that I am very much in favor of that because we have such a, sorry, am I at the wrong
We'll be
time?
addressing that later in the agenda, and you can speak to it at that point.
Okay.
Yep, thank you, ma'am. All right, anyone else this evening? All right, clerk, next item, please.
Item 18, second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the naming of the hospitality area at Levitt Shell, Sioux Falls, in Falls Park West.
Good evening, Jackie.
Good evening. Jackie Nelson, Administrative Manager with Sioux Falls Parks and Recreation. Here to talk to you tonight about the naming application requested by the Friends of Levitt Shell, Sioux Falls. The Levitt Shell is a partnership between the National Levitt Foundation, the Friends of Levitt Shell, Sioux Falls, and the City of Sioux Falls. Per the agreement, the Friends of Levitt Shell, Sioux Falls have the authorization to accept and utilize gifts, donations, and contributions within the Levitt Shell's geographical area to benefit the Levitt Shell and the free concert series, including naming rights. The attached map on the slide is an outline of the approved geographical area that includes the hospitality area being proposed today. The hospitality area is a concrete pad located near the front of the lawn. I've included a slide this week that does show that concrete pad prior to the snow this past fall. So this is before the sod was in. So it does look a little bit flatter than what the lawn is actually sloped at, but at least you can see the concrete pad is directly in front of the stage, just to the south of the restroom. The naming application I present before you tonight, again, is between the Friends of Levitt Shell, Sioux Falls, and Howell McDowell, a Marsh McLennan agency. Approval of this naming application would allow for sponsorship and renaming of the Levitt Shell hospitality area to the Howell McDowell, a Marsh McLennan agency hospitality area. This is a 5-year agreement beginning June 1st, 2019, and ending on September 30th, 2024. It includes a one-time payment in the amount of $25,000. This agreement was unanimously approved by the Park and Recreation Board on February 20th. As part of the sponsorship, a sign acknowledging the partnership will be placed within the hospitality area, concrete deck, or landscaping. Sign details are being finalized. However, the sign will be no larger than 24 by 24 inches and will be in compliance with the National Levitt Foundation, the City of Sioux Falls, and the Friends of Levitt Shell Sioux Falls signage requirements and guidelines. A sample of potential sign is included within this slide. And with that, I do have Nancy Helverson, Executive Director with the Levitt, here with me tonight to help answer any questions.
Thank you, Jackie. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item this evening? Good evening.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. I spoke about this last week, and I started thinking about this, that how easy it is for the Parks Department and the Levitt to come up here and ask for naming rights from the City Council for the Levitt, which is great. It would be just as easy for the City Council to change the ordinance to allow people to bring their own alcohol to the Levitt concerts. Now, we were told that we can't bring our own alcohol, but we can buy alcohol there and drink it because it's Falls Park. Well, it's never was Falls Park. It was Pitt Salvage, and then it became Falls Park West. So it's never been a part of Falls Park. It's not Falls Park. It's a lot above Falls Park. So that argument is null and void. I just think it would be a simple ordinance change to allow that. If they are allowed to sell alcohol at the Hot Harley Nights, German Fest, all the Levitt concerts, and allow people to drink there, buying the alcohol, there's no reason why people can't just bring their own. And I have said, you make a designated area, and you make people get wristbands, and you say, here's the deal, you're gonna bring your own beer, it's gotta be plastic or aluminum, and you have to drink in this area. If you don't drink in this area, you're gonna have to leave. And I think it's a simple ordinance change. 4 of the Levitts across the country allow this, and they do the similar thing. You have to get your wristband, you have to do it in a designated area. They don't let everybody just drink wherever they want to. And I don't know why we can't do this. You know, the big promise of this, and taxpayers I believe we put in about $3 million, and then we're gonna do maintenance every year. Why can't we bring our own beer? Why is it that we always, when we go to these events, we always got to pay the piper somewhere? Well, you get the free concert, but you can't bring your own beer. You got to buy our beer. You know, it's always something or another. And I think it would be really useful, write up a simple resolution that says we will allow people to bring their own beer during the Levitt concerts. And like I said, you could specify it specifically for events, not, you know, all the time people hanging out there drinking beer, but just for the Levitt things, just like the special wine and beer licenses they're gonna have to have for the events. You could have a special thing for people who wanted to bring their own beer. Like I said, 4 other Levitts in the country figured it out. Wasn't rocket science, wasn't real hard to do. We can do it here. We always talk about how progressive we are, the progressive prairie, but for some reason we don't want to be progressive about this. So I think it's time. You know, we got a hospitality deck where people can go drink on there. Pretty simple. Little ordinance gets put up in front of you here tonight. A couple minutes to do it. They tell you all about it. You get to vote on it. You can do the same thing with this. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, we're going to take revenue away from the Levitt. So there's still going to be people who show up and buy beer because they're just too damn lazy to bring their own beer, to tell you the truth. Or they don't want to carry it with them or whatever. But there's going to be a lot of people who are going to like to sit and bring their own and drink it there because that's just the way it is. And I'm getting tired of this community getting to a point where everything has to be for these people. Always has to be for these people. Nothing anymore is for the regular people who just want to grab a six-pack at the gas station for a lot cheaper than buying it and just go sit in the park and have a few beers and watch a free concert. What's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that. So, hope you guys work on something.
Stephen Ciano. I want to support what Scott has just presented and bring to the table an experience that I had. I used to be a pretty good chess player, high
Is this related to naming rights? The naming rights, that's the discussion. Not beer.
And this has to do with alcohol?
It's not, we're not talking about alcohol. We're talking about the naming rights. This is what we're voting on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. If anyone wants to speak about the naming rights, we will take public input on that. Good evening.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. My name is Cher Rosa de Choro. I just wanted to let the city council know from what I spoke on last week. I didn't plan to speak again, but I just wanted to say my uncle was Steve Metley, who was a visionary for the Falls. And I would just like to say that if I could ask him what he wanted, I would. And I just want to tell you that I think the city council, along with the opportunities that come along our way that are progressive, I just wanted to say that I support whatever the city council chooses and whatever you think is in the best rights and the best interest of our city. Thank you for the time.
All right, Council, do you have any questions for staff on this item? Councilor Steele.
Yes, Jackie. Just clarification about the alcohol policies in our parks. Do we allow alcohol in any parks, beer in any parks?
We do in some of our parks. So there's specific ones within the ordinance that are outlined that we do not allow alcohol or consumption of alcohol.
And in those parks where we would allow alcohol, do we have a limit as to how much alcohol you can drink?
I don't believe there's a limit within the ordinance, no.
And at the Levitt, there's not going to be a limit either? I mean, people could buy 3 beers if they wanted to?
And I will let Nancy answer that. I'm not sure what her policy will be.
I would like to keep the relevant to this discussion, which is naming rights and not alcohol at the Levitt, which is a entirely different topic. So I will let you address that question, but I'd ask that the questions on this topic are specific to the naming right ordinance that we're reading.
We will be working with Tom Slatterly from JJ's, and we'll be setting a limit on how much people can drink. They'll be allowed 3 drinks in an evening, and that's it.
And in this hospitality area, is that going to be a place where people will be drinking alcohol? It'll be set up?
It may be. He's bringing his beverage truck where he'll serve from. So if you're standing there, you might have your beer there if you choose.
Okay, and then maybe you can help me with this as far as naming rights. Are we going to be looking at opportunities to have other entities have some kind of advertising down there?
We may be, yes.
Yeah, because it looks like for 5 years, they're paying about $5,000 a year.
Correct.
To have their, how big will the plaque be? Can you show me?
It's a small plaque, 24 inches by 24 inches.
Okay.
But they've also donated over $400,000 worth of rock. That was part of their initial gift to build the Levitt. So that's why the amount is not greater.
Okay, but yeah, I think you're gonna have a lot of traffic going through there, so if there's some way, it'd be a great place to have people be able to advertise whatever their business might be.
I think so too.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Counselor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if maybe for the benefit of those watching tonight, could you maybe walk us through the process of naming rights? Like, if somebody's interested in that, what do they go through? Can anybody apply, or is there a basic minimum to a business that wants to be eligible for naming rights?
Sure. So what we have done with the Levitt National is talk about some specific areas within the venue where we feel like adding that other name of a company in town would be beneficial as far as helping us with our operating dollars. But what we don't want to do is take away from the Levitt National name because they were the primary developer of the Levitt venue. So now what we're doing is if somebody expresses an interest, we'll sit down with them, talk about kind of what they're interested in and see if there is a match. There's nothing right now that says here's the plan for naming and these are only the things that will come, because as we develop that site more, I think there might be more opportunities that come along.
So like personally, sometimes if people are going to make investments, they have to have a particular net worth or a minimum net worth as far as business-wise or naming rights or that type of thing. That kind of thing doesn't apply. You just discuss it with them and figure out if it's
one-on-one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Any other questions, counselors? Look for a motion on this item.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, move to approve by Selberg, seconded by Kylie. Any other discussion? A vote on this, please.
Councilmembers Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 19.
Second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving a grant of permanent easement.
Good evening, Don.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, Don Kearney with Parks and Recreation. Appreciate the opportunity to present this permanent easement request from the VA hospital for some drainage improvements that they installed as part of the Midco Aquatic Center construction back in that 2016 timeframe. At that time, they did approach Public Works Engineering about some of those drainage improvements that would address some of the flooding they had in front of their emergency room doors, generally improve drainage in the neighborhood. And then we also had a couple situations where the proposed improvements would also help us with erosion that we were seeing on the west side of Spellerberg Park. And then in that same general area, we also had some icing conditions due to some overland flow. As you can see on this map, the Midco Aquatic Center is located to the right of the red dashed line, which is within Spellerberg Park. Everything to the west of the red dashed line is part of the VA campus. And the hash marks are the two easement areas that we've identified and was requested by the VA hospital. And that's the location of where those improvements were made on city property. And then also note that those easements are about 30 feet wide and range anywhere from 40 to 80 foot in length. During the process of installing those improvements, due to the time frame involved in the VA being able to get an easement put in place for this, we worked with our city legal team and our public works team to grant them a right of entry permit to allow that work to move forward while we were also under construction on the Midco Aquatic Center. And then they also now are requesting that we make this permanent easement and put that in place so that they can maintain and work on their improvements that they've made. They have made those improvements at their complete expense, and they would also be responsible for maintaining the easement and the improvements. Our Public Works team, legal team, and Parks and Rec team would recommend approval of this grant of permanent easement. glad to take any questions.
Thanks, Don. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight?
Hi, Steve Ciano. I just want to say, as has been my history with VA since 1978, and I became disabled, went to the VA in California, New York, and consequently
Is this
here.
related to the easement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That the VA, as I have learned, cannot be trusted. So that's what I have to add to this.
Councilors, do you have any questions for staff on this? Okay, any motions to make on this item?
Move approval, Nitzert.
Second, Sale.
Okay, move to approve Nitzert, seconded by Sale. Any discussion? All right, a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson. Yes. Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 20.
A first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by adopting the 2018 International Existing Building Code and amendments thereto.
All right, we got the Butch show here for a few items. So, Butch, welcome this evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Butch Warrington, Chief Building Official. Tonight is the first reading of the adoption of the I-codes, 2018 I-codes. Currently, the city is under the 2015 I-codes. Every 3 years, we come back to adopt the new set of codes. Hopefully, newer, better, brighter ideas keep coming. What I've learned is they don't put a lot of new stuff anymore. It seems to be more tweaking, so it's more understandable. However, there is a lot of stuff going on with new technology, so that goes on. The first one tonight is the International Existing Building Code. This is a code that's used downtown a lot, or any existing building, because sometimes it's impossible, or nearly impossible, to bring the code when you do a remodel up to current code. So this gives us a lot of leeway. It is used a lot downtown, let me tell you. But it's there to accomplish this objective, to make the buildings easier. The code allows for options for controlled departure of full compliance while still maintaining basic levels for fire prevention, structural, and life safety features. Any questions?
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Butch on this item? Okay, any motions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, move to approve by Kylie, seconded by Sale. Discussion, council? All right, vote on this one, please.
Councilmember Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson. Yes. Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
All right, that is passed. Item 21.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by adopting the 2018 International Mechanical Code and the 2018 International Fuel Gas Code and amendments thereto.
These two codes, the mechanical code is basically a code for ductwork, appliances, things like that, ventilation systems, that type of thing. And there again, there wasn't a lot of big changes in this one. And the fuel gas code is the same way, but that controls our regulation of natural gas appliances. And there again, there wasn't a lot of changes to this code, just a lot of little tweaks. And we're going to update to the 2018.
All right, thanks, Butch. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilor, you got any questions for Butch on this one? Councilor Erickson.
I do. Butch, can you tell me if there's any, these are huge, there's a lot to go through, and I know there's tweaks, and so thumbing through them and looking through them, my question is in regards if there's any current code or proposed updates to the propane tank heaters that are located in the public right-of-way.
Propane tank would be a portable heater, and they don't require regulation by the International Fuel Gas Code.
So it's not included anywhere in here, even though it's not, I'm sorry if I can follow up, even though it's not required, doesn't mean that we can't.
We could, but we would have to do some amending to the code if we were going to start doing that.
Like at a later time, okay. Is that something that you think needs to be in there for that when we talk about any propane tank heaters located?
If we started doing any propane, does that mean we'd have to do gas grills and everything? So I just assume not.
And I'm only talking in the right-of-way.
You know, okay. We'd have to look into it because the code doesn't address anything like for portable heaters, other than it might give us something on what standard that they need to be tested to.
Gotcha, thank you.
Councilor Neitzer.
Do any of these changes address natural gas fire pits?
No.
Is there anything in there already about?
Yes, there is for a natural gas fireplace, it does give us what that particular appliance needs to be tested to. It gives us a standard that it has to be tested to.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Butch on this item? Okay. You can look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 19.
I so move.
Second, Selberg.
All right, moved by Councilor Sales, seconded by Selberg. Any other discussion, council? All right, vote on this one, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Item 22.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by adopting the 2018 International Building Code and amendments thereto.
This is the International Building Code 2018 version. The building code covers anything that does not covered for buildings under the residential code. The residential code is specific for 1- and 2-family dwellings and row townhomes. So this will cover anything other than that. There's a few big changes in this that I would like to make. The 2015 code input where a storm shelter was required in a Group E occupancy. The chart you see shows that we are barely in the 250 mile per hour wind. At 250 mile per hour wind, that requires it to go to the ICC 500 code, and there's a whole lot of stuff that's in addition to this. What I am proposing is, rather than a 250 mile per hour storm shelter, that everything goes to a 200 mile per hour storm shelter. The last 2 schools that were constructed in Sioux Falls, the Sioux Falls School District on their own built rooms to withstand a 200 mile per hour wind. And that's what I'd like to see. I think 250 is a little much, but 200 is reasonable. One of the other changes I want to make is we've always adopted out of, if a building was sprinkled, you could get a reduce in exit width for stairs and for doors. Well, this came to a head here this last year when it went to the Building Board of Appeals, because on a large building, they didn't see our ordinance. So we ended up going to the Board of Appeals. Well, at that time, I did a bunch of research and found out I was kind of out on an island by myself. And if the rest of the nation is good with this, why can't we? So I want to go back to what the actual code says, and that gives us that leeway. And we did go through the Board of Appeals, and what we ended up doing on that one, just so you know, is instead of a 2-hour enclosure, we ended up with a 3-hour enclosure to give the people the extra time to get out. The last one is sprinklers in apartments. We met with contractors, rental owners, the South Dakota Multi-Housing Association on this matter. It was agreed upon that apartments that were constructed to date did meet the code at the time of construction, and they would not have to be updated at that point in time. It was agreed upon by our Public Works team that a single water line could be brought into the building if they choose. Right now on a large apartment building, you have two water lines. One is for the fire sprinkler system. The other one is for the potable water. It was agreed upon by Public Works that we could run one line as long as that line was suitable for potable water. No alarm panel would be required in these smaller units, and these are the units that are between 6 and 16 units. So that gets rid of that expense. It was determined also that a plumber can actually install the sprinkler lines. It doesn't have to be done by a sprinkler contractor. So we did work with these people. I do have a letter, and Denise could not be here tonight. She wanted to be, but she was going to be out of town. She gives our full support in the adoption of this. This has gone to our Building Board of Appeals, and they gave the approval of this. So I would like to keep that ongoing. And those are the big items for the IBC.
Thanks, Butch. And confirming that's Denise with South Dakota Multi-Housing?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Right. All right, anyone from the public wish to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for this item? Councilor Neitzer.
So this covers apartment complexes. Would it also cover commercial buildings as well?
Commercial buildings are in the same code, but there's different regulations for commercial buildings depending on what they are. Apartments, we've always said if you put 2-hour fire barrier walls in, you could not get away from the sprinkler system. What we found out was from the state when they adopted their rules back in, I believe it was 2012, that they weren't very happy with us when we did that interpretation. So we kind of got chastised. So they said their intent was any building 6 unit and more got a sprinkler system. So.
Now, this next question deals with multifamily and apartments, although I may apologize if it's more appropriate in the plumbing section, but testable check valves, is that required in new construction, and has that changed?
Check valves?
Yeah, you know, like on the water line.
On the water lines. There are going to be, and I have to admit, I'm not an expert and I don't have my plumbing guys up here, but yes, they're going to be required either in RPZ or a double check, one or the other. And I can't tell you, I know the RPZ is for more hazardous stuff, but I can't tell you which one goes where. But yes, they are required on all new.
That you'd have to either be testable or have 2 of them?
Yes, they have to be testable.
Okay. And then my other question, and this has come up from some questions from a few citizens, and I don't think this is the case, but I want to check it. Is there anything when somebody's submitting building plans for a multifamily complex that, or frankly for any construction, that has anything to do with groundwater levels? Like, for example, if my groundwater, does anybody have to do any borings or anything to tell you what the groundwater level is?
No, we don't.
So, for example, I mean, like if the ground, and obviously it's always fluctuating, but if the groundwater is predominantly 7 feet and I want to do a full basement and I am willing to put in the drain tile and just pump nonstop, I can do that?
There's nothing in the building code that says you can't. Let's put it that way.
Okay. And there's no submittal as part of the plan check or anything?
The only thing we know is when you build it is where it's going and how deep the footings are and that type of thing. I don't get into the drainage end of it per se, on that end of it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Butch, when you refer to a Group E occupancy, can you remind me again what all is encompassed there? Is that commercial, apartments, is it?
A Group E occupancy is an educational, anything up through 12th grade. Okay. So it's basically 2.5 years of age up through 12th grade.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Staley.
Butch, this is just to get this on the record, because I did talk to Denise when I got her letter from multi-housing this weekend, And there was some confusion with, when we had the informational proposed to us, that sixplexes would not be, have to have sprinkler systems. However, existing sixplexes, it would only be applied to new construction, but that isn't totally accurate, right? And what you're saying is that it was already written to the code that if anything from sixplex on, if you're doing more than 50% renovation, then you will have to put the sprinkler systems in.
And what it is 50% of reconfiguring of space. And rarely do we get into an apartment building such as that where they're reconfiguring that much space. Because to reconfigure space, you're making 3 units into 1 unit or 2 units into 3 units. So we don't typically run into that. If they have a problem, they put the walls typically back in the same location. So that's not considered a reconfiguration of space.
And then just before the meeting, you and I were talking, and you brought up that if you had any existing unit, like a 25-unit apartment, is existing, doesn't have to have sprinkler systems?
It goes back to the existing building code where if we don't reconfigure that space, then that part doesn't kick into the code.
So that would be what year does that go back to? Like now? I mean, like if I'm an apartment owner and I've got 50 units in there, okay, I don't have to have a sprinkler system?
It all goes back to the existing building code. So if you're reconfiguring a lot of space or over 50%, it could be kicked in, but that rarely happens.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'd look for a motion, set a date of reading for, second reading, excuse me, for Tuesday, March 19 for this item.
Move approval, Selberg.
Second, Kylie.
All right, motion made by Selberg, seconded by Kylie. A vote on this item, please.
Councilmembers Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson. Yes. Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Elberg.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 23.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by adopting the 2018 International Residential Building Code and amendments thereto.
This is the International Residential Code. This is for 1- and 2-family dwellings and row townhouses. There weren't a lot of big changes to the code this time. The one thing I did want to bring up was 3 years ago when we came to adoption, the home builders came in and they did asked us to eliminate the requirement for sheetrocking the lower levels. This time I'm not making them come back to see you. We're just going to remain as was. Now, I do have to admit, maybe in 3 or 6 years, we may revisit this situation because there is a product out there now that you can spray on and you don't have to sheetrock and get the same protection. However, it's still $1 a square foot. So I think that's a little much for something like that. We're going to leave it as is and we'll revisit it in 3 years, maybe 6 years, and see if that price comes down and makes it more reasonable. One of the things we did have was they put a new chart in our code this time, and it was for deck piers. And it was just unrealistic. The smallest deck pier was 14 inches round. Well, we have been sizing them on our own using 3,000 pound soil bearing capacity for many years, and we can get by with a lot of 8 and 12 inch round deck piers, and I think we're just going to continue to do that. And this was kind of a neat thing that they added into the code this year. If you have a small office or a stargazing room, you don't have to have a regular set of stairs to it. You're allowed to use a alternating tread or a step ladder or a ship's ladder. And I thought that was kind of neat that they're going forward. And the other big one that I think you'd be interested in, they have an appendix this time called Appendix Q, which is for tiny homes. And before, we really didn't have any guidance on how a tiny home was to be constructed. However, with this, we will have it, so we did adopt Appendix Q. And I should say, we did take this to the home builders to get their approval, and I do have their support. And this, The Board of Directors did give us sort, I do have tonight, Terry Kelly, he is in the audience, he's with the Building Board of Appeals, and they gave our approval for this. Denise has given us the approval for the South Dakota Multi-Housing Association, and the HPA Board of Directors has given their approval on this.
Thanks, Butch. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Just push him right aside. You're a lot bigger.
I'm
Good evening.
very familiar with Butch. We deal with each other quite often. My name is Brad Mayer. I'm currently the Vice President of our Home Builders Association here in Sioux Falls. I also serve as our Chair of our Building Codes Committee. And I'm here to show our support for these recommended changes or adoption of the new code. Just very briefly, I want to say I was in Las Vegas just recently here in February for the International Builders Show. During that time, I was able to communicate with a lot of people from all over, not just the nation, but the world. Had some interesting conversations when I said that we were working with our building official on the new round of code changes. They looked at me like I was from the moon. We have a very unique and cherished on our end relationship with the city. We've always had great communication with Ron previously, with Butch currently, on working through that delicate line of improving energy efficiency, safety, but trying to maintain that affordability, which is constantly a problem. So I just wanted to say we have a very unique relationship here in Sioux Falls. If you did not know that, I want to express to you that it is very unique. There are very contentious relationships out there across the country, and I'm here to just show our support for this proposed adoption of the new codes.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Mr. Mayor,
Good
City
evening.
Council, my name is Cher Rosa de Charon. First of all, I just wanted to address the fact that the tiny home building plans and approvals that are coming to a vote, I would like to ask to have it approved, especially because I am planning a tiny community perhaps, and I think it's a marvelous idea. I also would like to say that my specialty is in working with multiple housing associations, and I met Denise for the first time, and I spoke with her about this one. I agree 100%. My question is, in particularly with the building codes, I did notice that the City Council is looking to hire inspectors, and I just wanted to know, as the codes improve, the people that we hire, are they educated and I can't think of the word, but educated and informed and up to date, and are they capable of doing all the inspections that our city needs? Thank you, Mayor and City Council.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Butch on this item? Okay, I'd look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 19.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Sale. Any discussion? All right, we'll take a vote on that, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley? Yes. Erickson? Yes. Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes. All right, that passes 7-0. Item 24.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 156 Floodplain Management, Subchapter Administration.
This is a little housekeeping is all it is. Removes the chief planning and zoning official as the floodplain administrator and puts the chief building official in there. And also, it gives us the choice to charge the $50 fee if it's a very insignificant project.
All right, thanks, Butch. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this one? Councilor, do you have any questions for Butch on this? Councilor Neitzer?
Does that mean mechanically you're going to deal with the floodplain administration?
You got it.
Been Jeff for many years, so.
It was Jeff, but he's no longer, his title is no longer planning and zoning official, so
Sure.
they decided to put me in that position.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Could I get a motion to set a date, a second reading for Tuesday, March 19 on this item?
So moved, Nitzert.
Second, Selberg.
All right, moved by Counselor Nitzert, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion? A vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 25.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 150 Building, Subchapter Building Security.
There again, there's a little housekeeping in this one. And then what we did was we added an additional option for entry vision. With today's technology, we can use cameras and everybody can see it on the inside. That was never available. So we added that one little section.
Okay. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item tonight? All right, Councilors, do you have any questions on this one? Councilor Nitzert.
Does this section deal with things about school lockdown doors, things like that? Is that handled anywhere in our codes, or is that really
That's really not part of our code, no.
That's really just a purview of each particular school? There's not building code that mandates that sort of thing?
Exactly. That would be a school option on how they lock things down.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 19.
Move approval, Selberg.
Second, Kylie.
All right, motion by Selberg, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion? A vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Item 26 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 110 Licenses, Subchapter Fee Schedule, Section 110.028.
Once again, this is a little more housekeeping that we get, and we made it so that for inactive contractors, they're all being charged the same price, so.
Got it. Thanks, Butch. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Questions for Butch on this, council? Okay, look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 19.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, motion by Kylie, seconded by Sale on this. Any discussion? All right, we'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 27.
It's a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 150 Building, Subchapter Plumbing.
This, we added one section to the code, and what we did was we modeled it off the IMC and the IFGC, that when a water heater is changed out, the contractor has 48 hours to call in for an inspection. Before, the code was really silent on that. We've picked a reasonable time. Well, 2 months isn't considered reasonable, so we thought we should put something in writing.
Okay, thanks, Butch. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this topic? Councilors, do you have questions for Butch on this one? Councilor Steele.
So did you get a lot of feedback from plumbers on that one, Butch?
No, we have not.
Well, are they aware of it?
They're probably not as aware of it as they probably could be, because this is one that we threw in at the last minute. I didn't talk to the Plumbing Board of Appeals on this one.
And I don't remember hearing about it at the informational either.
It should have been there.
Oh, I don't remember that coming out. So are we going to be able to maybe get a hold of them before the second reading?
I sure can talk to
It
them.
really does help me as a novice to know when I hear people giving that a ringing endorsement that it's, the industry supports that. So going from no time limit to 48 hours, and then you're comparing that to what, a month or 2 months?
What this came up was, we had a contractor that didn't call in their inspection for 2 months. And you got to realize, we're just looking for the public welfare, that everything gets public and safe. And 2 months for a water heater to run and with no inspections, I can't guarantee that. And what he was doing was holding us hostage. or holding the homeowner hostage. He wanted to get paid before he called in for an inspection, and that's a position that the city shouldn't be involved in.
No, I understand that, but I mean, so 2 months versus what would be another amount of time? I mean, I have no idea what they,
And that's why in the mechanical code and the fuel gas code, it gives us 48 hours to get things running on an emergency situation. We felt that was good, and we copied it from that.
well, once again, I think it'd be really great to have the plumbing industry weigh in on this.
Any other questions for Butch? Counselor Neitzer.
So in the normal case, you would obtain a permit in advance, like you would do most things that require a permit. This would cover, for example, the water heater goes out on Saturday night, the city's closed, and I have to call and have a water heater put in a quote-unquote emergency situation. And then once they put it in, they have 48 hours so that the contractor could go down Monday morning and get a permit post facto and
exactly
get it inspected.
Exactly.
So that's what this is covering.
That's what this
They
is
can't
covering.
dilly-dally for 2 months.
Right.
And not bother getting down there, all the while the homeowner might be at risk.
Right, exactly.
Any other questions for Butch on this one? All right, look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 19.
Move approval?
Second?
All right, motion by Counselor Selberg, seconded by Sale. Any other discussion? All right, vote on this, please.
Councilmembers Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson? Yes. Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 28, please.
It's a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by repealing subchapter manufactured homes of Chapter 150 building.
This is a document, we don't know where it came from because it's an ICBO document. Well, when the I-codes came in, the ICBO, which was the International Conference of Building Officials, went dead. So we thought we'd clean it up and get rid of it.
Got it. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Questions for Butch, Council? Counselor Neitzer.
So in plain English, is manufactured housing covered somewhere else?
I can't find where this document was even used or anything, so I can't even answer that question, Greg.
Well, I mean, as far as I guess I'm not familiar. You got to get a placement permit, I know, for a manufactured house, but do they must fall into normal building codes otherwise as well? I mean, if they do things?
If you
or not?
consider a manufactured housing more like a trailer home, that's under the HUD codes, and we don't have any jurisdiction on that.
Yeah, the distinction between a quote-unquote trailer and a manufactured house being one that's prefabbed and built at somewhere and brought and put on a foundation?
If it's one of those, then it has to meet the IRC codes.
So the latter, that is what you regulate, but the
Right.
trailers is not under your purview?
Use, exactly.
Okay, interesting. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions for Butch on this? All right, look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 19.
So move. Second, Kylie.
All right, moved by Counselor Sale, seconded by Kylie. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote on that, please.
Councilmembers Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 29.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 150 building, subchapter residential building contractors.
This one is all housekeeping on this one, getting things back where it should be. We really didn't change much of anything except a few little language words.
Thanks, Butch. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, do you have any questions on this? Look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 19.
I so move. Second.
Moved by Sale, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion? All right, let's vote on that, please.
Councilmembers Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley? Yes. Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. All right, Butch, you're off the hook now. Thanks, man. Next item is item 30.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, establishing a portion of Elmwood Avenue as a one-way street.
Good evening, Kurt.
Good evening, Kurt Peppel, Public Works Engineering. The ordinance First reading is for a section of South Elmwood Avenue near 26th and Western by the Lifescape campus. If approved, the ordinance would allow for Elmwood Avenue to be a one-way northbound street between 26th and 28th and set the stage for a solution addressing the neighborhood parking concerns as well as a safer drop-off and pickup scenario for Lifescape students. Along with this ordinance, a diagonal parking resolution will be presented on March 19th, which would allow for diagonal parking along the west side of Elmwood Avenue. City staff held an open house last night to discuss the proposed changes. 5 residents attended. We are not aware of any opposition to this proposal, and we look for your support.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Good evening.
Hi, Janelle Kane. Can I speak on the parking lot issue itself, or is this just on the one-way?
Specifically, this topic's about the one-way.
Okay, so when can we talk about the parking lot? Or I should say the sidewalk and the 20 feet between that, because I'm worried about the employees crossing that
Go ahead and
amount.
speak to that, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so on this plan, what worries me is, number one, you've only got one crosswalk and you've got 20 feet total from the curb to where the parking lot starts, okay? So that is funneling all of your people walking through the parking lot, which is dangerous with cars backing up and coming in. So I would think they would put another crosswalk to the sidewalk towards the north and towards the south, just for the safety of their employees to get to the sidewalk, to get to the one crosswalk in the middle to go through the doors. The other thing is with the 20 feet in between, it's kind of wasted space. If we could take at least 10 to 12 feet of that and make it closer and put that back into the berm, what that does is it takes that 20 feet as a landlord. I look at it and I think we've got to maintain that when it's raining, when it's freezing, when it's slippery, and it's really useless land just for aesthetics. We can still have green in there. We can still have room for snow removal from the sidewalk, but as far as having to maintain that 20 feet all the way across to the parking lot, that gives a lot more room to fall, to slip, whatever, when the weather is bad. So those two issues I'm concerned about with the employees walking through the parking lot and then being able to cross over safely into the sidewalk area.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, questions for staff on this? Councilor Neitzer.
I said there was going to be consequences to not vacating, and these are the consequences. That was just brought up, that required front yard of 20 feet. We can't change that. We don't have the power to do that. That's a zoning ordinance. By not vacating that street, it's a required front yard. It has to have a 20-foot setback. The parking lot cannot be closer. We can't move it. We can't vote on it. We can't do it. But that's what was decided. We're going to have 20 feet of wasted space. You're right. But that was what the decision was. There's consequences to what we did. So now we're going to have this parking lot closer to the citizens, and we're going to have less setback here, and we're going to have this goofy 20 feet, and we're going to have people crossing a public right-of-way, which is not safe. But that's what we chose to do.
You have other questions for staff on this one? Public input is done. Janelle, thank you. Any other questions for staff on this? Councilor Staley.
Well, and Kurt, up to this point, we have had citizens crossing a public right-of-way, haven't we? They've been crossing 26th Street to get from their employment in the VA parking lot to Lifescape.
Correct.
So that's not a new thing.
All right, look for a motion on this item to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 19.
Move approval, Selberg.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion approved by Selberg and set the date for Tuesday the 19th for second reading, seconded by Sale. Any other discussion, Council? Councilor Staley.
And Kurt, can you tell me some of the comments you heard from the residents yesterday?
It was mostly question and answer. There was, like Janelle had said, question about the setback. Director Cooper addressed that, very similar to what Council Neitzer has just said. I would say this is a concept. Their engineer is utilizing this layout to make final changes and do the actual layout with bump outs where the crosswalks would be to lessen that distance for people crossing the streets. So I believe they've submitted a plan for approval. This is just a concept for them to start working off. It looked very, very similar to this, but the final details would have to run through the engineering approval process.
Thanks, Kurt. All right, any other discussion on this? All right, let's take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 31.
A resolution vacating the North Highland Avenue right-of-way from the south right-of-way line of East Austin Street to the north right-of-way line of East 8th Street.
This section of North Highland Avenue is near 8th and Cliff, just east of the Terry Redland School. Sioux Falls School District submitted a right-of-way vacation petition pursuant to South Dakota law and the city street vacation policy. If the vacation is approved, an easement will be reserved for public and private utilities. Vacating the right-of-way will allow the school to construct a parking lot for employee parking. Neighborhood meeting was held January 17th. Approximately 7 residents attended. From a transportation and utility perspective, engineering does not have any concerns with the proposed vacation.
Thank you, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
City Council, Rex Stockwell, Stockwell Engineers, 801 North Phillips. I just want to offer a little bit of information about this project. The street from day one, I mean, the school board has wanted to maintain the traffic through this street. So the vacation doesn't eliminate the function of the street at all. What it does is in fact, you guys just faced the issue here a second ago. What it does is eliminates the front yard setback requirements. With front yard setback requirements on the lots that they now own to the east of the right-of-way, the parking lot couldn't be built at all the way it is. I mean, we'd lose a third, maybe even up to a half of the parking stalls and kind of make the cost almost prohibitive for the amount of gain in parking. The other thing that's different here is we have two contiguous two properties up front on the parking lot, two residential properties. Both of those people are in favor. They're here this evening, so I invite them to come up and share their thoughts with you. But they're both in favor. They're supporting this project, and other than that, there's no frontage of residential properties on this proposed vacation. The other items that I guess is important is we're also doing some handicap parking on the west side, so we're trying to improve their overall facility at the same time, and like I say, the traffic through the parking lot, the function won't change at all. So it's just making it possible for them to build a parking lot and provide something for the school. The teachers right now will have to do on-street parking. It's not a good situation. It's kind of dangerous. This hopefully will bring some of those people off that on-street parking and bring them into the parking lot. So,
thank you, Rex. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? Good evening.
My name is Richard Clarkson. I live right east of where they want to build a parking lot, and I think it's really a great idea. That's all.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Good evening. How are you?
Thank you for hearing me again.
You bet.
I'm Chelsea Johnson. I live in the other side, adjacent to this proposed parking lot. I also work at Terry Redland. And so my husband sees the problem every day trying to get our middle schoolers out while all the staff is parked on our streets, on 8th Street, on both sides of the street, and then trying to avoid the drop-off while he's leaving. It's really quite an issue. I also know the Terry Redland staff has a really hard time parking in there, and that after work, sometimes there are concerns about safety walking through the neighborhoods and getting in our cars in the dark. So if we could park in a lighted parking lot, that would really relieve our issue also. And thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Good evening.
Evening. Jeff Kreider, Director of Operational Services for the school district. This project's been about 15 years coming. We don't kick anybody out of their houses. We don't try to eminent domain, so it's been a while since we purchased these houses. And we finally got the last one and got it in the budget. And we try to minimize the impact of the neighborhood and try to do it with acquiring the least amount of property. So that's what we come here today. I got some letters in my file for Terry Redland from Steve Metley, actually, saying that we need to pursue parking around this site. So the city has been good and patient with us, and we're here hopefully moving forward with the parking lot. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have and give you any history on this thing. So
Thanks, Jeff. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? All right, we'll first see if there's questions for staff on this, Jeff, and then we'll see if the counselors have questions of you. So I'll start with Counselor Erickson.
Thank you, Kurt. A question for you. There's the two homes that are on the frontage. Where's the road there? Where do they get out? I guess I'm not, if you could go back to the other screen. So if Highland is vacated, where are they pulling out of their driveway to get out of there?
The yellow is to be vacated. That's what we're proposing to vacate.
Correct.
Those homes will be moved or raised with the project.
Those other two homes?
Correct.
Will be, I'm sorry, okay. So then the other ones face you, I'm sorry, I wasn't following that correctly. Thank you.
Other questions for Kurt? All right, let's look for a motion on this and we'll move into discussion.
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
Okay, motion approved by Kylie, seconded by Erickson. Discussion, council? All right, I'm going to call for a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Daly?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 32.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Stensland Enterprises, Inc. for the management of the cafe located in Falls Park.
Hi, Jackie.
Good evening again. Jackie Nelson, Administrative Manager, Parks and Recreation, and I'm excited to present to you tonight a proposed new management agreement for the Falls Overlook Cafe. So to give you a quick history again, the Falls Overlook Cafe opened in 2005. Since that time, the cafe has had 4 different operators, with the last RFP being issued in 2013. In October of this past year, Parks and Recreation was notified that the current operator would not be returning, leading the agreement to expire at the end of January. That being said, a new RFP was implemented in November with an intent to award the bid to Stensland Enterprises, posted in January. Stensland's is a family-owned and operated business with a farm-to-table philosophy, known for organic crop farming for over 25 years. They're an established business with currently 1 location in Sioux Falls, as well as 1 in Larchwood, Iowa. They also partner with other local companies to promote local products. In terms of the agreement before you, you'll find many components mirror the previous agreement that recently expired. Some key terms include no management fee, a 5-year agreement with an option to extend for another 5 years, 10% of gross receipts paid to the city, the exclusive right to rent the cafe facilities for business events, graduations, wedding receptions, anything special for the community, as well as being able to brand the Falls Overlook Cafe as Falls Overlook Cafe by Stensland. In terms of the proposed hours of operations, the current proposal would be May through September, Monday through Sunday, 11 to 8, October through January 6, Monday to Thursday, 11 to 2, Friday through Sunday, 11 to 8, with January 7th through April being closed, however, open for special events. The proposed menu would, of course, include their 50-plus flavors of ice cream rotating, hot and cold sandwiches, salad, pizza, hot and cold beverages, as well as a catering menu and different market items that could be purchased on location. Some key responsibilities for Stensland's include setting the hours of operations with the director approval, employing, supervising, and directing employees for successful delivery of food services, providing insurance as well as daily maintenance and janitorial services, as well as obtaining and maintaining all licenses and permits necessary to operate the cafe. In regard to the city, some key responsibilities for the city would include ground maintenance, exterior building maintenance and repairs, snow removal services, as well as being responsible for maintenance and payment of utilities, and subject to available funding, providing for repairs in excess of $250 to city property and equipment inside the cafe. These key responsibilities for both Stensland's as well as the city are consistent with past agreements as well. And with that, I thank you for your time. I do have a few members from Stensland's here in the audience to help answer any questions you might have.
And I assume samples to help persuade the...
I asked them for samples too.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item?
Mr. Mayor and City Council, hi, my name is Rosa de Sharon, and I just wanted to speak on this behalf because living in New York City, we have Tavern on the Green. It's not Tavern on the Green by Stensland and Farm Company. I also wanted to point out the fact that if Levitt Shell is having to pay so much money to get their name at Falls Park, I think we should reconsider the name on the Falls Park with the restaurant. I would also like to say that I think that Falls Park, I'd also like to know if there's going to be alcohol served, and I'm guessing not since it's more of an organic menu. And I think that I'm excited to see something go in there that I would like to enjoy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council.
Thank you. Councilors, you have questions for Jackie on this? Councilor Neitzer.
I do have a few questions. The first should be pointed out, it is worth noting that the RFP had one submittal.
Correct.
And it's a neat facility, but it has been challenging in recent years.
Absolutely.
So as far as the alcohol, Falls Park doesn't allow alcohol, so obviously, would they be able to do even like 1 days or?
So they actually are part of the ordinance where they're excluded. So
They
Falls
are,
Overlook
okay.
Cafe is excluded within that ordinance. So they are allowed to have beer and wine.
So they could go to get some sort of an alcohol license and sell it potentially?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Would it be allowed to leave the facility?
No.
Okay.
It would have to stay on site within the premise of the Overlook Cafe.
Would that include like the outdoor kind of patio area?
It would include the patio area, but you would not be able to take it off that patio area. Yep. And that's consistent with the current agreement or the previous operator as well.
Okay, I wasn't familiar whether they had an alcohol license or not, but.
She did, yep, she did sell beer and wine. Mm-hmm.
Okay. As far as signage, I remember reading in the contract, it did talk about that the verbiage Falls Overlook Cafe would remain. And
yes.
Can you just clarify the by Stensland? Will there be signage changes, interior, exterior?
So the by Stensland's, that's primarily for their collateral, their marketing and advertising. So if you see an ad in the visitor's guide, for instance, they could use Falls Overlook Cafe by Stensland's. In terms of the building itself, no signage changes there. So anything on the building itself, on the wall, the signs out, and as you're walking up to the front door, those would still all remain Falls Overlook Cafe.
How about inside? I mean, that seems fair. It's a longer contract. I don't remember what it said. Did it go into what they could put inside, for example, to put obviously their branding?
They will have branding inside that says Stensland's.
Okay.
Throughout it, yes.
And then finally, a lot of times to make these a little more feasible, for example, over at the indoor pool, that proprietor they restrict, you know, obviously you need to cater through them and bring things in to help keep them solvent, I guess. So if you were going to have, do they have the right to have exclusivity? For example, if I want to rent out one of those rooms, will they have the right to restrict what kinds of foods I can bring in and say you have to cater through me?
Yes. So they are working currently with Chef Jenny. So their caterer for events would be Chef Jenny.
Okay.
At the present time.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Counselor. Counselor Starr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jackie, you talked about the hours of operation. Is there the ability for them to close the facility for private events?
Yes.
Okay. And that's with the director's permission, or is that just we've got a group today and we can put up a sign and we're closed to the public, or what's the procedure for that?
That's actually, that would be up to them as part of the agreement. However, in terms of overall operations, hours with operations, that would need to go through the director approval.
Okay. We've limited it in the past, at least for strictly beer and wine that they would have. Is there then the ability to do 1 days for liquor or hard alcohol type of things as well that would come to us similar to what the Levitt would do?
They potentially could. I have not heard that they're looking at doing that right now, but they potentially could.
Okay. And then the other is, you didn't address the capital improvements. So the city would still be responsible for overall condition of the building. I was confused by seating and chairs and tables and those type of things when that comes. Is that the city's responsibility, or how does that work?
So the table and chairs are the current ones that are in the building today, so those do belong to the city. So we
and then we would have to, or they would ask us to include it in our capital plan to, when it's time to replace those.
Right, right. And you know, anything else they'd want to bring in, they would be responsible for. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the one other thing that still concerns me, and I know we talked about it a little bit, is that only paying once a year, because we require monthly financial statements to see where they're at. There's a joint checking account, so it seems like it would be easy to write that check the next month. So it just seems like a big liability that we have hanging out there every month, or to just only get paid once a year, or to make that transfer. So I'm not sure we can fix it at this point, but at least I wanted to point it out. So.
Any other questions, Counselor Neitzer?
It is an interesting question, and I guess, and it's not fair probably to ask you if you know this off the top of your head, but for example, we take the grocery receipts over at the Crooked Pint. Like, for example, how often they might remit, or if we have any other models around town, because I just don't know whether it's once a month or yearly or.
Crooked Pint, for instance, is once a month that they
would
send us their monthly report, yes.
That they submit, that they pay, or that you review their.
We receive their reporting. Don, they would remit monthly as well, I believe.
Sorry, I'm sending you to Final Jeopardy.
Yeah, they remit and submit their monthly financials on the hotel and the restaurant monthly. And so they work with finance to get those monthly payments. And this is kind of also modeled after the dive-in that we have at the Midco, where they pay on an annual basis as well. And so we've kind of let finance make that call on whether or not they want to see monthly financials and monthly payments, or whether they would like to see monthly financials and annual payments. And so we've just kind of deferred to Tom and now Sean in that role.
Yeah, I guess they're not here, but I wonder if it has to do with projected revenues and things like that, and maybe there's some.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about millions of dollars, I think they would certainly want to be more considering, you know, that monthly payment process and reconciliation. But with the dollar amount that we're talking about, I think they just feel like I would just say they're comfortable with annually. We did run that up the tree again after Councilor Starr's comments from the informational, and they again remain solid in supportive of the annual payment.
Okay. Thanks, Don. Councilor
So,
Staley?
Don, well then, and maybe our city attorney can weigh in on this, but could we as a council change that? If we wanted to make that uniform with the other entities that are paying monthly?
Yeah, you could certainly make that a change, but I'd defer to Stacy on the process, or whether council's supportive of that as a whole.
You can contract anything legal, so I mean, you have that ability to negotiate that. That hasn't been where we've been on this one, but
But would that show up as an amendment?
well, I mean, let's see, we're on
Or is it too late?
well, you haven't voted on it at this point. So we haven't entered into.
Is this the way it was handled before too?
Yes.
It was a once a year thing?
Yes, it was on an annual basis before as well.
What are you projecting that their that their annual payment is going to be to the city?
Historically, it's been about a $30,000 payment a year.
And what's the restaurant at Elmwood doing?
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head.
But it's more than 30,000 that we're getting, I mean,
It's a different arrangement for the restaurant than it is.
wasn't that like a $40,000 minimum thing? Okay, but it's probably more than 30,000.
Likely, yes.
Any other questions for Don on this? All right, thanks, Don. Counselors, look for a motion on this item.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
All right, move to approve by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Further discussion, Council? Counselor Sale?
I'd just like to say anybody that serves 50 different kinds of ice cream is going to get my vote. So I'll be voting to approve.
All right. All right, I'll call for a vote on this item, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Stolberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Thanks, guys. Item 33.
A resolution adopting written findings by the City Council approving a proposal to demolish the property at 101 East 6th Street and the issuance of any related permit based upon the consideration of all relevant factors, and that there is no feasible and prudent alternatives to the proposal, and the program includes all possible planning to minimize harm to the historic property resulting from such use.
Stacy, I'm going to let you speak to this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This resolution is adopting the findings, which is basically a written record of the decision that you previously made on the proposed demolition on the Raven property. Not unlike having done this before, this is one where this is not a substantive vote on the merits of the decision. This is basically a vote on the accuracy of the findings as drafted, and the city attorney's office, of course, drafted those, and we believe that they are accurate and ones that we would defend in the event of an appeal. And of course, as the council's aware, there was not any stated opposition, so at this point, I do not anticipate that. But even if there is, we are comfortable with them as drafted.
Thanks, Stacy. Anyone from the public here to speak on this? Council, you got any questions on this item? All right, look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Move to approve, Kylie, seconded by Councilor Sale. Let's take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Stolberg?
Yes.
All right, 7-0 passes. Item 34.
A resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, and those people include Randall Osterloo to the Sioux Falls Housing and Redevelopment Commission, Zachary DeBoer, Michael Jameson, Keith Lepore, and Joe Schaefer, all to the Visual Arts Commission.
All right, anyone from the public here to contest those folks or speak to that item? All right.
Move to
Look
approve,
for
Erickson.
motion to approve. Move to approve by Erickson. I got a second?
Second, Sale.
Seconded by Sale. Let's vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr? Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Stolberg?
Yes.
All right, passes 7-0. Item 35.
A resolution vacating the alley right-of-way from the south right-of-way line of East 24th Street to the south lot lines of Lot 216 and Lot 195.
Hi, Kurt.
Kurt Peppel, Public Works Engineering. The alley in question is near 26th and Cliff Avenue near the Avera McKinnon campus. Avera McKinnon submitted the right-of-way vacation pursuant to South Dakota law, and the street vacation policy. Neighborhood meeting was held January 30th to discuss the rezoning and the right-of-way vacation. Engineering has not been contacted by any neighbors with concerns. If the vacation is approved, an easement will not be reserved for public and private utilities. As part of the site plan for the redevelopment, Avera will be required to construct an access to 8th Avenue, as denoted on the site layout there, so that we don't create a dead-end alley for snow removal and emergency services. Engineering does not have any concerns with the proposed alley vacation.
All right, thank you, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Tom Bosch. And I am here to just briefly, you're very familiar with this project through the rezoning process, but specifically, as Kurt mentioned, we provided a neighborhood meeting. There was one resident, neighbor that lives directly south from 7th Avenue. He accesses his garage, which is just directly, I guess as you're looking at, to the left from the existing, the word existing there to the left. He did have some concerns originally, worrying if he was coming from, he was worried that if he was coming from South 8th Avenue, that he would have to take two sharp 90-degree angles. We worked with the construction of the alley that is running east and west to make sure that it was more of an easy glide in for him to come in to his garage and exit his garage. So he was happy to hear that we did that. Also, the alley itself that we're doing going east and west to 8th Avenue, that is actually wider than the current alley, the existing alley that's in place as well.
Thanks, Tom.
Just here to answer any questions if anybody has.
Sounds good. Anyone else here to speak on this item? All right, counselors, do you have questions for staff or for Mr. Bosch on this? Okay, look for a motion to set a date of hearing for Tuesday, April 9.
So moved, Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
All right, moved by Counselor Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Discussion on this, council? All right, I'll call for a vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Counselors, any new business?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, move to adjourn by Starr, seconded by Sale. All those in favor say yes.
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 All those opposed, no. That motion is carried. Our meeting is adjourned. Good evening.